are just days away from March, so you know what that means. It is almost time for the madness to begin. We're going to break all of that down for you today here in Studio A. Maria Trivelpiece alongside Kyle Youmans. Kyle, we talked about the women's slate last week. We have some big upsets in the men's that we have to break down and some more exciting things happening in the American Conference, but March just days away. I can't believe it.
It's starting to give that hint of March in the air, whether it's the weather or the fact that somehow wheat ends up beating Tigers and the Shockers get it done.
Fear the wheat. I'm going to need a breakdown. I want them to explain it to me though. I get it, but I want an even more in-depth breakdown
like
of
the Shockers of what that is.
Yeah, I get it, but I want people and student athletes from Wichita State to come on this show and give us a full-on breakdown. We're going to put in that request.
There might be one later in the show
maybe.
that you could ask about it. But there's a lot more important things to talk about. Because like you said, when it comes to upsets, they're starting to rain down like a little spring shower. Memphis still leading the way. They're currently the top, 16 team in the country at the moment, or 18, in terms of the most recent AP Top 25. North Texas, UAB, hot on their heels, but UAB gets downed by East Carolina. Since the last time we talked, shout out to the Pirates, who are now on the left side of the graphic. They're starting to figure some things out as we get closer and closer to tournament time, but nobody has turned it around quite like the Wichita State Shockers. Started American Conference play at 1-7. They've rattled off not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 straight wins. And they, of course, have their longest streak since 2021. And they've been playing great basketball all the way across.
Well, I think one of the cool things, too, is not only is this the longest streak since 2021, they also didn't even have an American Conference Player of the Week since 2021. And now in back-to-back weeks, Corey Washington and then Xavier Bell, American Conference Players of the Week. So they're really turning things around as a team, but individually, players are stepping up. And I think that's a big reason why is there's just so many different guys playing some of their best basketball right now. But, I think we started to see a little bit of a hint of a turnaround when they lost that game to North Texas. That's their last loss, January 29th to North Texas. And you started to see them. I know we use the analogy of lurking, but it really is so good. They were lurking. They hung around with that tough, mean green defense, and then win, 3 more wins, upset of the number 1 team in the conference, Memphis, right now in double overtime. And so I don't know. There's something brewing in that wheat, I guess, with the Shockers because they're playing some really good basketball.
And we had kind of outlined it very briefly on the show, but before the 6-game win streak, they had lost 4 straight. East Carolina, they lost by 3. Memphis, they lost by 8. Tulsa, they lost by 7. And North Texas, they lost by 4. So they were on the verge of being that team that was thought to be a top 5 team in the American Conference going into the season. They were picked 4th in the preseason poll for a reason. But they're not just winning games. They're dominating from a physical standpoint, from a defensive standpoint. They're playing much better defense, and they're doing so on the boards as well. I've been very impressed with the way that they've controlled the rebounding game. I've got a stat on that momentarily. But wins against Charlotte, South Florida, UTSA, that big one against Memphis that you talked about. And then these 3 are the most impressive for me. They defeat Memphis, who was a top 15 team in the AP poll at that time. They go on the road and they beat Florida Atlantic, which was riding in a hot streak, was one of the hottest teams in the American Conference. And then they take down Tulane, which a lot of individuals in the conference thought was a front runner at the early parts of the season. Is their test over with? No. They've got back-to-backs against UAB, and then they go on the road to play North Texas and Rice before returning home against Tulsa to round out the season. But what they've done so far is nothing short of incredible. The way that they've flipped the script, and the Shockers are indeed shocking the conference. I think that's what's you got to give credit to, because no matter how they end out in the final 4 games of this regular season, they're going to be a problem in March.
Well, I think you always talk about peaking at the right time.
Yes.
And I think that every coach tries to figure out what the correct formula is to peak at the right time. And Wichita State has been on a roller coaster this entire season because they start off non-conference play at 10-3, and so they're 10-3. They're picked 4th in the preseason poll. You have to be feeling pretty good if you're Wichita State. Then they head into conference play, and it just does not go well, right? So I think the fact that they're able to rebound after that, no pun intended there, but the fact that they're able to come back from that and then win 6 games in a row, and not only win 6 games in a row, but win big games, win tough games, as you mentioned, the rebounding.
Yep.
And I also just think it's a testament to the individuals on that roster. I think when you look at it, I think a big reason why they're clicking and starting to play well, despite all the little intricacies of the game, like the defense, like different people scoring, I think there's a lot of leadership on that team.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of older guys who have been here before, and they're finally starting to put all of that together and figure it out.
Yeah, credit to Paul Mills, second season with Wichita State. We've seen a couple of coaches in their second years at their respective programs have some success this year. But yeah, that's built between your coaching staff and your experienced players on there. I know we've talked about Xavier Bell on this show before and what he brings. Give a lot of credit to Corey Washington as well. Corey Washington was one of the better players in the American Conference, the American Conference Player of the Week on February 17th. After he averaged a double-double, he put up 17 points per game, 13 rebounds over those couple of games back-to-back. And that rebounding stat that I had, I mentioned the 2 most impressive wins was Memphis and Florida Atlantic. They had 50-plus rebounds in each of those games. When was the last time? Do you know this stat?
I don't know this stat.
The last time that Wichita State had consecutive games of 50 rebounds or more, you got to go all the way back to 2005. A literal 20 years ago that they've had. It's funny that it's 2025, and I'm just now getting used to it.
You know, math is hard sometimes.
It is tough sometimes. I went to North Texas. So you've got 20 years ago, and those 2 wins when they had the 50-plus rebounds was not against Memphis and Florida Atlantic in top 25 competition. It was against Oklahoma Panhandle State and Texas Southern. Those are the last 2 times they had that.
Wait.
Nothing against those programs, but that's what they've been doing, and it's something that the program hasn't seen in quite some time.
And I think just going back to that, when you look at the way that this season they've been able to just kind of work through some of that, and now they have this defense and the rebounding, I think that's something that they've wanted to put emphasis on this entire year, but they're figuring it out now at the right time. And so it kind of brings me to my question for you. When you look at this team and you look at the fact that they're having these great defensive performances, the fact that they're doing so well off the glass, how dangerous can they be as they head into March? I mean, because I'll let you answer, and then I'll tell you what I think, because for me, I'm really liking the way that they're playing
so
right
you
now.
like the way they're meshing together.
Yeah.
I think outside of the 3 teams at the top of the conference, Memphis, North Texas, UAB, I think Wichita State might be the 4th most dangerous team in the conference. And the only reason I say that is because they have a level of consistency that they've shown over the 6-game win streak that I think was just missing entirely beforehand, but they've shown it's sustainable. What travels into March? Defense, rebounding, and experienced guard play. They have all 3 of those things. And so if you can piece all those elements together, they're just as dangerous. I don't think they're as talented as UAB or Memphis. I don't think they're as disciplined as North Texas. But I do think they have a mixture of both the talent and the discipline to be dangerous. Whereas I'm looking at Florida Atlantic as a team that I probably would have said was my dark horse to make a run and win the whole tournament. They could certainly do that as well. I just don't think they have the combination of those things that Wichita State might have, despite having a better record going into the tournament.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think that this is when you want to be playing well. I'm interested to see how these next 2 games against UAB and then when they play North Texas one more time before the end of the regular season.
It's going to be a good tell.
I know. I think that I'll be able to answer that question a little bit better as we get closer. But right now, I'm on the Wichita State train. I'm bought in at this point in time. But speaking of North Texas, they've been consistent this entire year. They've won their last 4 straight. The Mean Green team, the defense has been their bread and butter all season long. You've gotten to cover them a lot within the time you were in college until now. What's different about this one?
They're built in an entirely new way, and I've already mentioned that on this show, to the point where they're winning wire to wire, one side of it. They're able to continue that discipline throughout, and they're getting post play. Shout out to Mulai Sissoko.
Ooh.
Mulai Sissoko has taken his game to an entirely new level, and it has been, like you said, I've been able to cover them for years now. The growth that I've seen from Mulai is about as significant as any other player I've seen in the college ranks. I think the only other player, at least that I've had an up-close view of multiple times, year in and year out, that I would say has taken a bigger jump would probably be John L. Davis, who played with Florida Atlantic during the Final Four run into last year and now is at Arkansas and is probably going to get drafted out of Arkansas with John Calipari up there at Fayetteville. So I'd probably say Mulai Sissoko's right there, because he was welcomed into a North Texas program after really struggling at Dayton. He transferred to North Texas, was on the bench, averaged 3 minutes per game going into the NIT run in 2023. Abu Usman enters his transfer portal. He steps up and fills a void for that North Texas team. But it wasn't just a scoring void that was left by Usman. It was defense and rebounding, and Sissoko was still learning in each of those elements. Well, he added rebounding first. He was able to rebound in that NIT run. Last year, 2024, he took a huge step forward in the defensive side of his game, and he became a defensive force under Ross Hodge in his first year as a head coach and was really good last year. Well, this year he's added the scoring element. So now he's got all three parts of his
Firing
game.
on all cylinders.
Put up 27 points, had 15 rebounds and a win against Tulsa. That was a career day for him, and it was dunk after dunk. He was working. Spacing was fantastic. He had the hook shot working in the lane, which has almost become automatic. If he gets deep into the post, good luck. I don't know who else is going to be able to slow him down, because Mulai Sissoko has been that guy ever since really taking over the scoring element and taking charge in that area of his game. Now that he's got all three, he becomes a formidable force no matter who he's playing up against.
So do you think it's just the patience and the diligence and the way that he's worked? Like, I know you mentioned all of it, but like just some of the things that he's had to overcome, and then just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting. And when his turn comes, he steps up. He has that ability to score. Is that more of what it is? Or?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's creative coaching too. They've found different ways to get him the ball and put him in a good spot down low to be successful. They've put him in the low block. They've put him in kind of a pick and roll situation. They've put him in the high post and let him roll off of a dish and go. There's a couple different elements of his game that he's been grown with, or have had some growth with. And if you're able to do that from a coaching staff, it gives everybody else, because now that Sissoko is a problem and he can put up 27 points on any given night like he did against Tulsa, how are you going to guard the guys on the outside like Latrell Giselle or an Adden Wright or a Grant Newell, who's been a double-double machine as of late? It opens everything up for this North Texas team, and that's part of why they've won the 4 straight, and they've led in all 3 games going into this week by not trailing in 154 straight minutes of winning basketball.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, because you talk about Sissoko, and I was actually reading an article a couple weeks ago just when he talked about other guys kind of helping him with that learning curve.
He gives a lot of credit to them.
Yes, and I think that's so impressive, because you see what he's done individually, and the fact that he gives some of that credit away, I think, speaks to the kind of player and person that he is. But he gives credit to those other guys around him, and I think that's a big reason North Texas has had a lot of success, is the fact that it's not just one player every single night. You mentioned some of those other guys who have been stepping up. It was Brennan Lorian for a little bit. We saw him coming off the bench, and when you and I did that game with Ross Hodge, he kind of talked about the fact that he doesn't even really look at starters and bench players. It's just all in a rotation and getting guys where they're able to succeed. And I think you're seeing that really manifest in the way that his team's playing right now, because different guys on different nights are stepping up, and they're able to not just rely on one person. So if player X is off, then somebody else can step up and be big in that night. And I think that's going to become dangerous when we talk about tournament teams and what's going to work in a tournament. I think that's something that plays a big part.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of trust from the top to the bottom part of your roster, and I think you've seen that with North Texas, because when you have 4 of your 5 starters that could go off at any point and can take over a game at any point, that's an ideal situation. When you've got 3 guys off the bench like Latrell Giselle and Jonathan Massey and Brennan Lorian that can continuously play winning basketball, whether it's because they're bringing a scoring element or a defensive element. Everybody can play defense on this team. You go all the way down the roster. You can look at guys like Tyron Mason and Matthew Stone and Alex Cotton, even though he hasn't played in quite some time due to an injury. They can all play defense. That's just that's the prerequisite to get into the North Texas basketball
They choose
program.
that program for that reason.
Defense.
Like when you look at every recruiting profile of every article that they write, like when a new player comes in, they're like, yeah, I picked North Texas because I knew I wanted to play defense. Like it's literally the main common denominator between every single article. They may have different skill sets, and that is playing out as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's true though, and I think you're spot on. Here's the thing about the way that they're built. I said it about Wichita State in tournament time. If you can play defense and you can rebound, you're going to win games. You got to have somebody to step up. Their key to have success in March is they need one guy that they can consistently rely on. The good news is they've got 4 or 5 guys that they can do that with. Now, somebody's going to have to take over in March. A couple years ago, it was Tyler Perry, and they knew it was Tyler Perry going into it. 2021, it was Javion Hamlet. They knew it was Javion Hamlet going into it. I don't know if they know who that guy is right now. Is it Mulai Sissoko? Is it Adden Wright? Is it Grant Newell? Is it Latrell Giselle or Jonathan Massey or Brendan Lorian? All these guys are great, but you can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none if you're going to make it to the tournament. You've got to make a run in Dickies Arena, and then you've got to try and get to the NCAA tournament. Here's my call, though.
Okay.
If they do win the tournament, the American that is, and they do get that automatic bid, because that's the only way they're going to go to the NCAA tournament. If not, they'll probably end up in the NIT. If they get to the NCAA tournament, they're going to win a game, at least one.
Okay.
And I'm not even going to limit it at just one. They might win 2.
Okay.
Because they're built the right way, and they have more depth than they ever have, including the year that they did win a game in the tournament back in 2021. North Texas is built the right way. I'm excited to see it. The one team that I think we can anticipate to be in the NCAA tournament, win or lose in February, is led by Penny Hardaway, who's now up to the 150 count and continuing in career wins. Congratulations, Coach Hardaway. Continues to do great work there in Memphis and kind of set the standard for these coaches along the way in the American.
Well, I want to give a shout out to whoever made this graphic and who put the wording on it. 150 for 1 cent. That's pretty good. I actually, till I read it, and the first time I read it, I was looking at it, I was like, oh, penny.
Oh, now I get it.
Okay, now I get
Wow.
it. Again, sometimes math is hard, sometimes reading is hard.
Yeah.
We talk for a living.
Did you know that's why his logo looks like that?
Did I? Maybe not.
Oh, no.
I don't know. Sometimes those things go over my
We'll
head.
have to talk about it.
We could break it down later. Yeah. I might
personal
not be back
logo-
on the next show.
No,
if I didn't know that, right?
this is fine. I mean,
Okay.
you're new to the American. You're learning. It's
I'm
fine.
learning. I picked up pretty quick. As quick
We
as
just
I
got to get you some penny merch is all it is.
Yeah. I like any kind of merch. If anybody wants to give me merch, please send it my way. I can't probably accept it though, right? Because I have to equally represent everyone.
I mean, that's the thing. If anybody wants to send us merch to wear on the show, I will wear whatever team sends me
Kyle will
stuff.
wear it. I'll have to give
I'll wear
my
it.
stuff
North
to
Texas
the
might be
triplets.
upset, but
Yeah.
I'll wear North Texas stuff too. So.
Okay. Well, that's just more incentive. Send the merch in. But anyway, you get merch if you make it to March Madness, and that's what the Memphis Tigers are hoping to do after we derailed that
Nice
conversation.
turnaround. That was
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at
I
it.
felt like a U-turn, and I was in the back of the car.
Yeah, but you made it. You're safe. You had your seatbelt on, so we're good. So buckle up. Let's talk about Memphis. They're 2-1 after losing to that Wichita State team that we talked about. And that snapped an 8-game win streak for the Tigers, who up until that loss to Wichita State, we're still very high on. They're an incredibly good basketball team, but we were talking about the way that they started to, make a U-turn of their own and get on track of where they want to be in the American and on the national stage. They're still phenomenal. They have those guards that have been fantastic, and those big four continue to be really good for Memphis.
So I'm going to pull a Maria Trivelpiece.
And you're going to U-turn it back?
No.
Oh, no.
I'm still heading in the right direction.
Okay.
I'm going to pull a Maria Trivelpiece and say that Wichita State loss was a good thing. I'm going back to the conversation that we had last week where you like losing, that kind of thing. But no, I think they needed that last final opportunity to say, okay, we're not unbreakable. We can be beat on any given night. And that's what it's going to take to win in March. And that's what it's going to take to make a run. Penny knows this. Memphis knows this. PJ Haggerty knows this. The experienced guard play across the board from the Memphis Tigers, they know this as an organization. But it's good to just get that final little reminder. It's not going to upset. They're probably still going to end up running the table, if I had to guess, because they're the most talented team right now in the American. So that Wichita State loss not only shows that any given team can beat you, but Wichita State was one loss and Temple was the other loss. Those are not necessarily the front runners in the American Conference. So it shows when you are playing the 1 versus the 8 or the 1 versus the 9 or the 1 versus the 4 in the second round or the semifinals, and then you're going up against 1 versus 6 or whatever it ends up being in the finals of Dickies Arena in the American Conference Championship, you can't overlook anyone. And now that message has been sent. You could have said initially, oh, that Temple game was a fluke. They just didn't play well. Right. Jamal Mashburn went off. They didn't play super well, and they lost that game. That's a fluke. Now you can say, okay, maybe it's not a fluke. Maybe we do have some chinks in the armor that can be exploited if the other team has the right game plan and executes the right way. Because if they play at the highest level, and we saw this in the following game against Florida Atlantic, if Memphis plays at the highest level that they're capable of, they're not going to lose.
No.
They're the best team. But it's whether or not you're going to get that. And we said that at the beginning of the year, and they're starting to find that right pairing from the starting lineup. They're starting to get Dane Danger involved, and he's playing better. I think Rogers is the X factor of this whole thing. If they have a fourth that can kind of run with those big three of Haggerty, Hunter, and Danger.
And when he shoots, like he can shoot the lights out. And when he's hot, that keeps him in games. Back to that Rice game. When we talk about the chinks in the armor and teams staying with Memphis, Rogers was that key component in that game. I mean, you talk about Tyrese Hunter. He had a really good second half in that game. Haggerty's just good. He's going to get at least 20 every game. That's just what he does. But when Rogers can come in and hit some big shots, and that's exactly what he did against Rice and in a couple other instances, to your point, I think he is that fourth one that kind of comes in and helps navigate and right the ship. And then also to your point, I do see I'm rubbing off on you. I agree with that little gut check of a loss, but I also think one thing that I notice about Memphis is that they play to the level of their competition. This might be another good reminder to play like Memphis plays, whether you're playing a 1 seed or a 10 seed.
Yeah.
But I think it also helps them when they play a team like UAB. When they played UAB, it wasn't even close. They just kind of ran right over them because I think they play up when they're playing the better teams. Did
the same thing to Florida Atlantic, and if you had to rank it, let's play a game. You don't have the box score in front of you, right?
No box score.
Okay, so from that Florida Atlantic game, and you might know the answer to this, that would just give you credit. Could you rank the top 3 scorers and how they finished? In that game.
For Memphis?
For Memphis in that Florida Atlantic win, what would be the top 3
I
scores?
put Haggerty at 1.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Probably go Hunter or Danger 2.
Okay.
I'll go Hunter.
Hunter 2. Okay. So would you put Danger 3?
Yeah, probably Danger 3.
Okay, so that's a very good guess, and I think anybody from the outside looking in, or even that's known this team for quite some time, would guess that because of the 3 best players. In that game, it was Haggerty and Danger tied for the top, and the 3rd best scorer was Colby Rogers.
Yeah.
That's where your X factor comes in.
Right.
And we've talked about the depth and peaking at the right time. They may not be peaking yet, because they're going to peak in March.
Right.
Because they're going to figure all this out, and they're just kind of playing with these, tinkering with these lineups to make it happen. Danger's an X factor. Rogers is an X factor. You're going to get everything, and you're going to get everybody's best shot for Haggerty and for Hunter because they're that talented.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
how do you combat it outside of that? If you've got 2 guys that you can go to outside of your stars, this is a dangerous team.
And I think Danger's been playing some of his best basketball within the last couple of games as well. I just see him like looking a little different. I don't know how to explain it, but I've just liked some smaller, even if it doesn't show up in the box score, he just looks a little bit more confident than he did earlier in the year. I don't really know. That doesn't sound scientific or analytical at all, but there's just something different about the way Danger has been playing that I'm like, I think we should pay attention to this.
So at the end of this regular season, so over the next couple of weeks, this is the first time I've talked about this, so it might be kind of random to those that are thinking. I'm going to release Kyle Youmans' dudes.
Okay.
You know, like we've talked about this.
Yeah,
like the
all right,
guys,
let's do it.
The dudes.
Who's your dudes?
These aren't going to be the best players. Like, if that's the case, like I would just vote for the all-conference team. It's going to be guys like Haggerty and Mashburn and all these Lindeborg from UAB. I mean, it's going to be all these guys. I'm going to release a list at the end that's going to be the X factors for each of these teams and the success going into the tournament. I'm going to do it for the men's side, and then I'm going to say the same thing for the women's. I'm going to have to come up with a different name for the women's list other than Kyle's dudes. However, the Dane Danger has a chance to be on that list.
Okay.
Let me just say it that way because he has been that step up. I think we talked about Mulai Sissoko. He could be on that list as well. It's a different type of under-the-radar list that once we look up and we're seeing the confetti of a certain color fall in Fort Worth, we're going to say it's because of these people along the way that got you there.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
Yeah. All right, let's switch the attention to UAB. You mentioned Lindeborg. They've started kind of piecing it back together after that loss against ECU. What a game that was, by the way.
Oh, my goodness.
That was right after. It was funny. We filmed this, the last episode covering the men's game on Tuesday. We had to do it a little bit early.
Yep.
So it was before the game happened on Tuesday night. And we got so many comments from Twitter or from YouTube, and it was like, but what about ECU? Don't worry. You guys did a great job.
Thank you for calling us on that. We appreciate it.
We were already done recording by that point. So what a win for the Pirates, and we'll talk more about ECU as we go along here in a little bit. But UAB has pieced things back together, and they've gotten back to the game that they played prior to the Pirates, which was significantly better defense, great rebounding, and then let your shooters shoot.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't really even like to say like falling apart after the Pirates. I think that was like a stumble. Like let me rephrase that. ECU has been playing some really good basketball. ECU flat out beat UAB. That was an incredible basketball game. But I think that the Blazers, it's not something that they should panic over. But I agree with you. I think for them, one thing that I kind of had a small question mark around was their defense this entire year. Not that it was bad, but it just
wasn't their style of play.
Yeah, that they're going to get up and down the court. They're going to put up a lot of shots. They're going to score a lot. But kind of like what you alluded to earlier in the show is if you want to be successful in March, like that element has to be at least solid, right? It doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be the identity of your team like it is for North Texas, but it has to be somewhat solid. And I think these last couple games, I'm starting to see the defense that I think it will require of the Blazers for them to hoist a trophy in Dickey's Arena, because I think offensively they have so many weapons. I mean, and they have Yaxel Lindeborg, which he is just an X factor. When you talk about people who can change a game, because not only can he shoot and score, but he is just a big body. He's a huge presence, and I think that he's a leader. There's a reason that he has all the accolades that he has. And so I think for me, I think it was more of like an extra reassurance that, oh yeah, UAB is definitely one of our top teams because this defense is finally coming into play the way that I think it needs to be.
I love how you were very politically correct. You're the reporter of the conference, and you wanted to kind of hold their defense up to a higher standard and say, yeah, it's not really their game. No, they're bad on defense. Like, let's just be completely honest. Out of 360 teams in the NCAA, Ken Pomeroy has them ranked as the number 286 defensive rating. They're not good on defense, plain and simple, but they're so good on offense. They're actually a top 35 offensive rating that they make up for it, and that's how they win 18 games. And they're one of the top teams in the American, and they can go
I'm glad
off
you
at
balanced
any point.
me out with that.
Yeah, I'm a guest here. They'll take me out in security later on.
I said it eloquently enough.
You
though,
very
right?
much so. Very nice. They're bad on defense, but they've been playing better defense, and so I give them a lot of credit. I thought one of their better defensive games of the year was actually against South Florida. Still gave up 78 points, which shows kind of to my point. South Florida, they gave up 78 points against a team like South Florida that can get up and down the floor and score every once in a while. They just demolished Temple defensively, held them to 64 points,
right?
which was one of the lower totals from Temple throughout conference play as well. And they held, they didn't have Mashburn in the fold there, which I think plays a huge factor, but they held Duradola to 0 points. They held Tobias in to 6 points. Stanford really couldn't get going. He was 7 of 20, 0 of 2 from downtown. So, yeah, UAB can play defense, and they can rebound, and they can run the floor. Those are all legitimate elements to their basketball team that's going to continue to win some games. Their upcoming schedule has me kind of intrigued because they're not necessarily the tough games, but you've got Wichita State. Just talked about them playing well.
See, I am circling that game like so hard on my calendar.
Game.
Like I just that's going to tell us a lot.
Yep, and it's on the road. It's in Wichita, so you've got the Cook Center there. So
that I have to tell you, like that of the couple, I'm going to get to all of the arenas eventually, but Charles Koch Arena was one of the loudest venues I have ever been in.
Coke.
No, it's okay.
There's a player for the Texas Legends. It's spelled the same way, and it's Cook.
Lots of difference. There's a ton of different pronunciations, so you're good. But it is one of the loudest venues I've ever been in. We had volleyball there back in the fall, and my watch was just continuously on like decibel level, and the people of Wichita and the fans of Wichita show out, especially for big games. So I just want to keep an eye on that one.
I want to see the community of Wichita go out for it. I know UAB is probably watching. They're like, stop it.
They're like, no, we're fine. Like, please
we're
calm down.
Yeah. But no, they've got Wichita State on the road. Then they go back home. And I talked about maybe not toughest games. Well, they've got Memphis at home. And then they've got Florida Atlantic at home. And then they go on the road and they play at Devlin Fieldhouse against Tulane. So 4 games that are not easy wins for UAB by any stretch of the imagination, and 4 teams that are in different spots. Wichita State's trying to continue their hot streak. Memphis is trying to establish dominance in the conference. Florida Atlantic's trying to turn it around after a couple of losses recently. And then Tulane, same kind of thing. They're a good team moving forward. So I think for the most part, you've got UAB as a whole that is still rolling in the right direction. But there's still a lot left to be done here.
No, I agree with you. And that's the end of the regular season schedule. Taking a look at the tournament, because we've talked about this with a couple of the other teams already. What's your keys for UAB to repeat as champions?
Ooh, it's tough because
That's a hard-hitting question.
Yeah, even when they're not winning consistently, which is hard to say because they won 3 straight. They lost to East Carolina, and then they've won 3 straight. When they're not winning consistently, it's usually because they don't rebound well. You got to play some level of defense, as I just talked about, and you got to rebound because even if you do get a stop, secure it. Don't allow for a second chance opportunity. In these games like East Carolina and Memphis that they've lost, you can't allow for that rebounding to come back to bite you. Continuously give yourself a chance. That defensive rebounding, you see that rebounds per game, number 103. Don't let that happen. Yeah, don't hurry that one up. You can continue offensive rebounding. They've been great on that all year. Make sure you can rebound at a high level and secure your defensive stops. That's my key for UAB to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, it's continuously been an advantage for them when they do it well. And we talked about the defense of the way that maybe it hasn't been playing out as well. So I think that it'll be a key as we head into tournament time. And you also talked about some second chance opportunities. Mm-hmm. There was an instance back in New Orleans. We didn't get to talk about it earlier because it was our week of women's, and I think we have to highlight this play.
Gets a screen. Downhill he goes. Swiped away by Glenn. 3 to go. 2 and 1. Once for the win. Yes, sir! Oh, my God! Woods wins it for Tulane at the buzzer. Asher.
Every time I watch that, I don't get sick of it because you talk about stepping up in big moments. You talk about just being aggressive, securing the basketball, taking care of the basketball. You see why it becomes the main thing that every coach screams and, has high blood pressure because of taking care of the basketball. Yeah. But then the fact that Woods comes down there and just drains that shot at the end, I think that's the epitome of what this Tulane team has been doing, having some of those big moments. And they need to be more consistent with it, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But they have the capability to win games like that and have those players be key and have those big moments. And that makes me really excited for March when you see plays work out like that.
Yeah, the most impressive part of that play for me is the steal and the defensive stop to secure the basketball and have enough time, secondly, to get back down the floor. Because if he misses the shot, Asher Woods, give credit. I mean, the pride of Atlanta, Georgia, man, he got it done. Ice cold in his veins, boom, transition 3, ball game. Great shot. It was awesome to watch. But if he misses the shot, you're going to overtime. That's kind of like that's a fine, like it's a good shot. Don't get me wrong. It was a fun moment. But it was the stop. You don't make that stop, right, you're probably losing the game.
Exactly.
Because Rice can set up on defense. You may or may not, I don't know what the situation was timeout-wise. You may or may not have had a timeout, but then you got to inbound the basketball and push it up the floor. Rice already has 4 or 5 defenders back. Who knows if you get the same look? Probably not. So the defensive stop for me was the most impressive part of that game or that play, and then get it done. Incredible play from Tulane. And we've seen this Tulane team up close and personal a couple different times this year. I mean, they're legitimate, and I give a lot of credit to Ron Hunter But like you said, consistency is a question mark, and they've completely overachieved. All year long, they've overachieved. They were picked 11th out of 13 teams. I don't know who's picking these preseason polls, but guess what?
I would
they
just
were
like
wrong.
to say I have nothing to do with it.
I wish they would give me a vote. We'll talk about that next. But the 11th out of 13 teams, they're currently 4th. So no matter what happens, they are going to overachieve. The one thing I'm curious about is, can they finish and end up in the top 4 to get the bye to the quarterfinals? Because this Tulane team is going to need it. Let me be very clear. They're going to need those byes because it's going to rest them up. They've had some injuries back and forth, some guys that have missed some time. Now they're starting to get healthy again, and they can maybe make a run if they have some extra legs to deal with.
Well, when you take a look at their upcoming schedule, I think that Charlotte's a winnable game. Tulsa's a winnable game.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk about East Carolina. They've been good, so that one's a little bit more of a question
Tough,
mark for me, and then UAB. So they have an opportunity to secure one of those spots, but they have to show up. They have to win the games they're supposed to win, and they might have to steal one that is a little bit more, as I said, of a question mark. So I think they can do it, but again, it comes down to that consistency. And, I think for me, I think we're, again, maybe being a little bit hard on them when we talk about consistency because, okay, even they're 2-2 since the last time we chatted, right? Those 2 losses are to North Texas and Wichita State. We just got done saying how good Wichita State has been and then North Texas just has been consistently good. And so I think they've won the games that they're supposed to win. I think that they're doing the things that people didn't even think were possible with the way that they've been playing well. And another thing for me is they have the players that are supposed to be leading the way. Those starters have been really good for Tulane, and it's a big reason why they're winning games.
And I think that, like you said, you outlined their final 4 games. They can go 3-1, and they would be the 4th seed. So you can go 3-1 and get there. If you lose any more than that, that's where it's going to be kind of a question mark.
Right.
Because Florida Atlantic is still hot on the heels. Florida Atlantic has a tougher schedule to end out the season. We'll talk more on that a little bit in a moment about when we kind of hit the Owls here. But East Carolina's not far off. They're a couple games back. And then, of course, Wichita State is closing quickly, too. So, yes, Brumball has been great. He's a shooter, man. I mean, I'm talking volume shooter.
Ice in his veins.
Yeah, if need be, he's been a clutch guy for them. Of course, we just saw what Asher Woods can do. I've always liked Caleb Banks. There's a tendency for Banks to disappear at times. I mean, he's one of the greatest players in Georgia coming out of high school, went to Indiana, then transferred back to Tulane. There's times where he'll disappear, but there's other times where he'll go off. I mean, he's put up 33 points in a game this year. He'll put up 20-plus on a couple of occasions. You just got to be but there were streaks where he was held under 10, and there were streaks where he was held under 6. You got to be consistent across the board. That's the only thing I ask for from Tulane.
So I think when we talk so much about the consistency, where does that start? Like, where does it come from? How do they become more consistent? Because when you take a look at this team and if you had to analyze where are maybe some of the gaps or where are maybe some of those things that are like hang-ups. I'm looking for the right word. Yeah, like a hang-up that's just kind of stopping them from being consistent.
It's the front court play. It's the front court. I think the back court's about as consistent as you could ask for. Greg Glenn, Asher Woods, Brumball. The one thing I will say about Tulane is there are a lot of times where they don't use their height to their advantage. I mean, they are one of the all get off the bus team guys, you know, like where you the hotel lobby guys, where you look in the hotel lobby and you're like, wow, those guys are big. And like they've got a great look at it.
Really needed you to
explain it there.
To explain that analogy.
I call it the hotel lobby or the all hotel lobby team.
Okay.
Guys that will be really impressive when they're walking out of the Marriott or the Hampton or whatever the heck they're staying. And they have a great look about them, but then they get on the court and they disappear. And I think there's a tendency for guys to do that. You've got Cam Williams, 6'8", 190 pounds. He's about this big around, but he's a great player and he can shoot. He was top 15 in the American Conference in terms of threes midway through conference play. He's fallen out of the top 15 in conference play, but he's top 15 in blocks. If you can continue to block down low and be defensive down low. That's an element to it. Caleb Banks, same kind of thing. I just talked about it. He can go off for 20 or he can be held to 4. Meet in the middle a little bit there. That's where I want to see it. Those are forwards across the board. I mean, Banks, Klin, Williams. Give me more from your forwards. Give me more from your height as well. Spencer Elliott comes off the bench for them. He's 6'10". Then I think we're going to see a little bit more success for the Green Wave moving forward. All right, let's move into East Carolina. Just talked about the Pirates, right?
Yeah.
We go from the Green Wave, we go from the ocean into the Pirates that sail on top of the ocean. And that's exactly what it has been for the Pirates. They've set sail, and they've figured some things out. And they've worked their way through conference play. Why are you laughing?
Because I'm just letting you continue
my metaphors
on your metaphors, and all I'm thinking about in my mind though is you're painting this beautiful picture.
Thank you.
Out on the water.
Yes.
Pirates raid other ships and collect treasure and booty, and it's a little bit more violence. So I think you got to marry that too. So I'm going to let you finish your part, the beauty of it.
Yes.
And then this is where they sink their teeth in and they go take the treasure that they really want.
Well, you know what Pirates are after the most, right?
Gold.
Absolutely. You know who they play next, right? The Charlotte 49ers. What do 49ers do?
Mine gold.
Exactly. So they're coming for the gold no matter what. Don't get me wrong. But
did we just make a completely beautiful metaphor on accident?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
That's why they pay us the big bucks.
Yeah. So they've won 4 of their last 5. They've struck gold, and I guess they go hunting for Roadrunners as well. They've already taken down the 49ers once as well, 75-59. But they've got 3 games left in the schedule. They are trying to get to that 4 spot. In order to do so, they're going to have to win out and then have some help. So they could get into the 4 spot, which would be wild with the way that they kind of had settled in. But I've mentioned it from the very beginning of the show.
Yes, you have.
For basketball season. Don't count out Michael Schwartz. He's one of the best coaches in the American. And that's nothing against the rest of the coaches in the American. We've got great coaches in this league across the board. Schwartz just has that cerebral side to him that he's going to figure it out. It's just a matter of when. And a lot of times their talent hasn't been high. They have a guy, R.J. Felton, that is it feels like it's a rarity to have a guy like that where he's stuck around this program through thick and thin over the last couple of years, and now he's just having himself a year. He could very easily end up on the on-conference team when this thing is all said and done. But don't give this man, and by man I'm talking about Schwartz, an opportunity to pick you apart, because he will do so.
Well, I think back to very early in the season when we were talking about Temple and we were really high on Temple. East Carolina beats them by a point. Right after that, they lose to Memphis by only 4. So they're staying in games with the teams that were at the top of the conference. And then you see them start to take away games from some of the better teams. They beat UAB. And so I think that they've always been just kind of hanging around. And as you said, just the cerebralness of the coaching staff and their ability to game plan against some of the best teams in the conference gives them at least a fighting chance as we get closer to March. And I also think, we said it so many times, and I know we sound like a broken record, but when it's the point of the season where it's either figured out right now or it's not figured out.
Put up or shut up. That's
come together.
The less eloquent way to say it.
It is, but that's why we balance each other out. I say it eloquently, and you just say the truth, and that's why it works. But but my point being is that the Pirates are starting to put up or shut up, right? They're putting
up. Putting up the sails.
They're putting up the sails to go steal the gold and all of that great stuff from everybody else.
East Carolina fans are either going to love this segment or they're going to absolutely hate it.
I think we might get trolled on Twitter, but it's fine. We'll do a mean tweet segment and we'll read all of your mean tweets that you send to us. But
don't encourage it.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I think it would make us stronger as human beings if we could take people's mean tweets that they say.
This is right here with your losing element. Now, one thing that they have been afraid of has been owls. They have been afraid of owls. If you take away the Temple game, the Rice game, and then the early game against FAU, they would be in the mix for that top 4 spot. They've lost some games they probably shouldn't have lost, and then they've won some games they probably shouldn't have won if you're looking at the top and the up and down spot. And what that tells me is you've got guys like R.J. Felton that can lead the charge, and now you've got that moving forward. I like this team. I like the way that they're built. I like the way that they can play. They lack size a lot. I know Walker's kind of a bigger player, but they've kind of put all of it together around these two. If they can continue to get some contributions from guys like Jared Riley and Hayes and Farrell and Woodard, then I think you're working in the right direction. But Walker, out of their top 7 scorers on their team, the only one that stands taller than 6'7" is C.J. Walker.
That's crazy when you actually think about it. They're just small.
They're small. They're
small.
a smaller team. So you're going to have your shooting. You're going to have your field goal percentage, which both of these guys shoot at a high clip and they shoot at a volume clip as well. Continue to do that, and I think you'll find some success along the way.
Yeah, you have the scoring of these two guys right here and just their athleticism and leadership, which we've touched on in other episodes as well. But as you said, when you're a smaller team, you have to be able to shoot the ball. And I think one thing that's at least a little bit encouraging for the Pirates is that from behind the arc, they're shooting the ball at a little bit higher of a clip. They're taking more of those shots and they're making them. And that's kind of helped them win some of those games that maybe they weren't winning earlier in the year because they've been making more shots. You take a look at that graphic right there. There's the attempts, 44.4%. So they're starting to get where they need to be from behind the arc.
Yeah, I mean, the 44%, if they're hitting like that,
yeah,
they're going to be fine.
Yeah, comparatively to the 29.4 in the other games.
Charlotte, Tulane, Florida Atlantic. Those are their final 3 games.
Winnable games.
All very winnable. Very winnable. And if we're talking about the metaphor, they like to get gold. So there's 49ers. They're going right back to the sea with Tulane and the Green Wave. And Florida Atlantic plays in Florida, which is a beach town. They're the closest team to the beach overall. So maybe that'll just be easy access for the Pirates to make a run.
They can take their ships right into the harbor.
Right into it. All right, Boca Raton hasn't seen the best basketball over the last couple of weeks. Florida Atlantic. We were speaking so highly of FAU. Now, I want to speak highly of their marketing department because how about Seinfeld night?
This was awesome.
How cool was this? It was national news. I didn't even know Seinfeld could make national news still. It's an incredible show, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, we're in 2025.
People loved it.
They still love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should see the social media posts just from, like, fans, and then Commissioner Tim Pernetti was there as well. He posted about Seinfeld night. Like, people were loving this marketing from Florida. Yeah, there's a fake Kramer.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. That's even
everything.
better.
I know. But
Yeah.
people are loving the
I
marketing.
liked the
from Florida
Pez
Atlantic.
dispensers too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great
It was very
bit.
well
It
thought
was
out.
awesome.
Shout out to the marketing team at Florida Atlantic.
Yeah. Now, did they win the game?
Did they win the game on Seinfeld night?
They did not. They did not win the game. So, with that being said, we talked about Wichita State. We've talked about Memphis, and those were the 2 last losses that they've suffered. Florida Atlantic still has every bit of talent that we talked about throughout their 5-game win streak when they beat UAB in South Florida and Tulsa and Charlotte and Temple. Now you're starting to see the rougher waters getting into – sorry to go back to sea puns.
I didn't.
But you're getting into those rougher waters in what is a just gauntlet of a final 6 games, and we talked about that the last time out too. I mean, I'll even throw in final 7 games, but they knocked off Temple on the road up in Philadelphia, and then they go Wichita State, Memphis, North Texas, South Florida, UAB, East Carolina.
Yeah, there's just no.
Yikes.
You can't even breathe in any of those moments, and so it's just tough when you're looking at that because we're talking about people like getting that final seeding, and you want to put yourself in a good position, even if you don't secure one of those.
You want
top
to be
4.
on that list.
Yeah. Even if you don't secure one of the top 4 spots, you want a better matchup as you get in those early rounds of the tournament. And so, I think it just becomes tough. It's going to be a gut check. They're literally going to go through a gauntlet right before the tournament, and I think that what you need to do is be able to manage the emotions of what this is going to bring. Not only just the physical aspect of these games that are coming up, but the emotional component. If you don't win some of these games, how are you going to rebound in the tournament? And I think that's going to make or break Florida Atlantic. Not even necessarily like how they perform in these games, but how they respond to the way they perform in these games.
Yeah, and I think they've kind of overachieved, maybe not from a win-loss standpoint, but they're unbelievably talented. You're seeing guys step up in a big way in their respective roles throughout the year. I think, man, I'm going to butcher some of these names. I mean,
Matas Vokatitis.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one I was going to think about.
I knew that, but he was in a top play a week or 2 ago, so I hit that pronunciation guide.
Vokatitis?
Yes, Vokatitis.
He's a dude.
He is a dude.
He's about as athletic of a 7-footer as I've ever seen in this conference. And remember, he's replacing Vlad Golden, who took Florida Atlantic to a Final Four and is now one of the best players in the Big Ten with the Michigan Wolverines. So Vokatitis comes in as a freshman out of Lithuania, and he's just been putting on a show as a 7-footer because he doesn't just go down and rebound. He goes down, he can shoot from the outside, he can shoot from the mid-range, and when his mid-range is dropping, that's when he's going to be better and better across the board. We talked about X factors earlier. He hasn't been that lately. 4 points against Wichita State, 3 rebounds. 5 points against Memphis, 6 rebounds. And that's because Wichita State and Memphis out-athleted. It's not a verb, but I'm making it a verb. They were out-athletic over the top of Vokatitis. They pushed him to the brink. They ran around him. They forced him to move his feet. His footwork was a bit slow, a bit sloppy. Looked like he had cinder blocks of shoes. That's what happened across the board for Florida Atlantic. If they can get Vokatitis to play like he did against Tulsa, where he almost had a double-double, Temple, where he almost had a double-double, that's just the added production to the really talented guard play, and then the other forward in Baba Miller, who's also a significant contributor. He hasn't been playing well. 6 points, 3 points, and 9 points over his last 3 games. You got to have both those guys step up in a big way.
Yeah, and the thing that we talked about with Florida Atlantic is that their offense is good. That's the thing that works for them. We talked about their defense maybe not being as great. And so when you don't have those guys that are normally scoring for you, putting up the points that they normally get, then you're going to put yourself in a bad situation. So that balanced offense that's been leading the way for them hasn't necessarily been there in every single game, and that's why you see the record that they had within their last 4 games coming into the show today.
And give credit to Memphis and Wichita State.
Yeah, I mean, those are also really tough
those
teams
were the
to play.
2 teams we started the show with for a reason. Wichita State's the hottest team in the American. Memphis is arguably the best team in the American. So, yes, you're going to have some tough ones, but it's not over. North Texas, South Florida, UAB, and then East Carolina. Watch that coaching staff of East Carolina do some work on the forwards that we just talked about a little bit. They're going to be challenged in those. From one owl to the next.
There's lots of owls in this conference.
I love it.
A lot of owls.
The Rice Owls.
Rice Owls.
Let's talk about Rice a little bit. They have had the worst stretch of close games that you could possibly think about.
And against good teams too. I think like that's the thing that like hurts my soul for them, because they're right there.
They're on the cusp.
This is what happens. They're like right in a game, and then you have a crazy play at the end, like when they were playing Tulane, that just sticks the nail in the coffin and they lose. Like they hang with teams. They hung with Memphis. Like there's components there that are good. And you know, when I did that Rice Memphis game, Coach Lanier was talking about, he's like, look, this isn't the most talented, skilled team, but it's my job to figure out a system that works the best for these guys. And he's like, I think I'm close to figuring it out. He's like, but we just need to execute a little bit better. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing. Like the game plan has pretty much been there for the Owls. Like they've game planned well against some of the better teams in the conference, but then it comes down to like a key turnover at the end or just a little mishap here or there. They have these pieces and they have these spurts where they play really well, and then they just can't hang on, and that's why they're 1-9 in conference games decided by, I think that was 6 points or less to the Graphers. Yeah.
You know what this team reminds me of? I'm going to go back to a team last year.
Ooh, okay.
A team that was 1-11 to start conference play in the American. It was another Owls. It was the Temple Owls.
And
they had a 10-game losing streak toward the beginning of conference play. In that 10-game losing streak, 6 of those games were selected by double figures or decided by single digits. Sorry. They were decided by single digits, less than 10 points. What did they do down the stretch? They started 1-10, but then they started to kind of turn it around and get the right wins. They won against UTSA by 6, won in overtime against Wichita State. They turned around and they beat UTSA by 2 points, and then 3 points just 3 days later on the road. When you're piecing it all together and you're looking at what the roadmap was for the Temple Owls, who ultimately made a run to the American Conference title game as the 11 seed, history repeats itself. And Rice is kind of in that same mold. The only thing they're missing is the actual competitive wins when they're winning by single digits. They did it Temple did it down the stretch. They won 5 of their last 6, 2 against UTSA, 1 against SMU, Charlotte, and then Florida Atlantic. And a lot of these were really close games, but they finally got the ball to roll the right direction going into the tournament. And, of course, they made the run that they did. Rice can do the same thing, the same exact thing. You just got to have the right breaks and the right type of shooting and execution in order to get there.
Yeah, and when you look ahead at their schedule, they have Memphis, UTSA, and Wichita State. So 2 teams that we talked about playing some of the best basketball in Memphis and Wichita State. If they can at least get close in those games, if they can pull out a big win, I think that sets the tone for them heading into the tournament.
Yeah, and they had the win against Tulsa, which I think was a good start. Broadnax, when he's scoring at a high level,
he's good.
That helps out a whole lot. They won that game wire to wire, kind of dismantled Tulsa in that game. Was up 43-28 at halftime. I mean, that's what Rice was trying to do, and they went and did it against Tulsa. Can they continue to do so? Maybe they can find a little bit of that spark that Wichita State found. They can find some of that. They're deep. I mean, that's the other thing about Rice is they will play 9 guys any given night, 10 guys any given night, whereas a lot of these teams are only going to stick to 7 or 8 guys.
Right. I think for them to win or at least be competitive in these next couple of games and then cause some problems in Fort Worth, they have to figure out how to take better care of the basketball, and they also need to figure out how to just be better in those big moments, because they have those sparks, like I said, where they play really well. They have the components, they have the depth, but they just need to be able to close out games in the biggest situations.
One guy that I think would be a big proponent in March, if they're going to have some success in March, is Kellen Amos.
Okay.
Houston native,
born
and raised in Houston. 6'7", 190 pounds. He's kind of that tweener guard, kind of two-way guard. Can play outside. He can hit the 3. And when he's hitting the 3 at a high clip, it turns the entire game around for the most part. He's a transfer who was at Binghamton initially. Then he went to, Central Connecticut was the next game. I'll give you $20 if you can name both of those teams' mascots, by the way.
Binghamton Bearcats, Central Connecticut State, right? It's Central Connecticut State. Oh my goodness, I know this. They're like a blue
You're
devil.
From up there.
Yeah,
They're a what?
They're like, it's not a blue devil, but it looks like a blue devil.
Mm-hmm.
I forget.
Okay.
I've literally called games with both of those teams, and I have friends who played at both of those schools.
What's your official guess?
Central Connecticut State. I'm seeing their logo in my head.
Okay. Close.
It's like a sun devil or something. Not a sun devil, but it's like a blue devil thing.
We'll continue in a minute. But he's been around teams that have won in March and have gotten deep into conference tournaments, not to the NCAA tournament, but close. He could be the guy. He's been playing better basketball as of late. I want to see Amos take a bigger step. He's been coming off the bench for the Owls. He would be somebody to keep an eye on in Fort Worth. All right, time to take a look at some of these key games coming up on the schedule. No Central Connecticut or Binghamton. There's only Rice and Memphis. That's a game to circle. By the way, last week during this segment for the women's side, I said that Rice was going to upset. I put a call in, upset over UTSA in the women's side. Boy, was I close on that one. It was a 2-point game, and UTSA pulled it out late. That was a tight one, but that's okay. I'm not going to make an upset pick this week. And I don't know if I even have one that I would really want to make, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
North Texas Atlantic, or Florida Atlantic, is going to be an interesting one.
What school was that?
Atlantic, I don't know.
North Texas Atlantic.
North Texas and Florida Atlantic is what I was trying to say. Professional broadcasters here. I think that's an interesting one because it's ESPN2, and it's going to be another matchup between teams that are going in different directions. I would circle that one as going to be a whole lot closer. Florida Atlantic led for much of that game at the Super Pit, and North Texas came back late to win it. I don't know if North Texas can afford to get down again against FAU this time around. As we go to these upcoming games as well on the second page, what do you think about this group?
Oh, I wanted to circle that North Texas Temple one. We were on that game the first time around, and it was really gritty. I want to see if Temple can turn things around here, so I'm not counting that game out. That would probably be, and that UAB Tulane game, I think I'm intrigued by, because Tulane's trying to make a push and UAB is trying to stay at the top of the conference. So I think those are the two that I'm definitely circling. In addition to watching all the other games.
All the other games. I also want to see Jamal Mashburn get back.
Yeah.
You know, I hope he's able to. There's kind of like, there's nothing really out there right now on whether or not he's available, but he's been one of the best players in the conference. If Temple's going to make a run in March, they're going to need Jamal Mashburn to be that guy. I outlined that on the last show. So well wishes to Mr. Mashburn. Hopefully he's back on the floor very, very soon. He's been one of the best players in the conference, but nobody has been better than who you got a chance to catch up with early.
Good kick to Cortez. Extra pass. Bell driving to the rim. The teardrop drops. Ring the bell again for Xavier Bell.
Yeah,
the Wichita State Shockers have been on a roll as of late, and a big reason why is Xavier Bell, and he joins All-American now. Xavier, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited that you're here because, as we already said, your team has been playing quite well. You lost on January 29th to North Texas, and then you haven't lost since. So what do you think it has been, that turnaround right there, 6 games in a row? What changed?
Just a lot more connectivity throughout this team, man. Leaning in on each other, understanding, we're going to go through hard moments throughout these games, the ebbs and flow of these games, but leaning on each other, trusting our game plan, and just trying to find solutions to win for sure.
When did you feel that connectivity click?
I would say, man, just after the string of losses that we had, there wasn't a time where, we kind of just lost and just everybody went their separate ways. We all kind of sat in the locker room for a while, closed the door, said some things maybe and kind of just addressed the situation. But it was all more so just about trying to find solutions and trying to find ways to get this feeling out of this locker room and more so just, I say, just lean on each other and trust each other in those moments for sure.
I want to talk more about the wins in just a moment, but you mentioned some of those difficult times. How were you able to kind of get through it together as a team, and how were you not able to just, say, let's throw our hands up, we already lost so many games, we're just going to give up?
Well, this is an older group, an older team already. And then I just, kind of credit, like I said, my teammates and really more so just our coaches at the same time, man. Just them, stressing to never give up, just to keep showing up, keep trusting the process. I would say Coach Mills, our head coach, has kind of been the head of the snake, or the main culprit for saying that. But just, trying to just trust the process and just find solutions instead of, like you said, just turning away and accepting, our fate. It was still a lot of games left, still a lot of conference play left. And, I think we're making the right turns at the right time for sure.
Yeah, you're definitely peaking at the right time, and that's something that I think everybody talks about in the world of sports. I want to talk a little bit about that win against Memphis, double overtime. They were ranked 14th in the country at that time. What did it take for your team to kind of gut that one out? You already mentioned some of the grittiness that this team has.
Our coach says it all the time, man. But, the last few minutes, whether that be in overtime or the last, 4 minutes of a game, that's where, players show up and players make plays. It was a string of efforts, a string of great plays, I would say more so by the 5 who were on the court, man. Not necessarily, myself, but we had a big 3 from Bijan Cortez that kind of put us up 4, and then, Quincy Ballard and Corey Washington go to the line and make their free throws down the stretch. So it's more so just about, trusting each other, trusting the work that we put in the weeks to prepare, and then the couple of days to prepare for that game specifically, and then just going out there and executing it for sure.
So your team is certainly clicking at the right time, but you have also been clicking individually. You're the American Conference's Player of the Week. You averaged 23.5 in your 2 games last week. For you, what has been working so well?
It's just a testament. I would say I first want to, testament to God for sure. But it was more so, man, just, trusting my teammates, trusting my coaching staff. They're swinging the ball, they're finding me, and I'm just, trusting the work that's put in on a daily, not just necessarily from myself, but from the long hours of practice that we put in, the long film sessions we put in, man, and just trying to play in the right space and just get the best shot possible, not only for myself, but for the team in the moments for sure.
I know for you, one of the reasons that you transferred to Wichita State was to come back home. So what has it been like getting to play in front of like a home crowd, your family, all of that in your home arena?
It's a blessing, you asked me in my junior year, senior year of high school, when I wasn't committed anywhere yet, if I would be playing for Wichita State, let alone, how far we've come along with this 6 game winning streak right now, and being a part of it. Yeah, I wouldn't have imagined it at all. So it's all just a blessing, man, a full circle moment. And, I take a lot of pride and I wear my heart on my sleeve, being from here, and just growing up here and playing for Wichita State right now for sure. Just trying to pave the way and essentially follow in the footsteps of those who have come before me for sure.
I love that. Now, as you said, the season is very far from over. You've won the last 6, but you have UAB and then you have North Texas, 2 teams that are also at the top of the American Athletic Conference. So looking ahead to those games and the rest of this season, what's it going to take for Wichita State to win out and then also hoist the trophy at the end of the year in the conference tournament?
Not necessarily just getting too far away from our identity, man. Lately our coach has kind of been harping on it and we've harped on it all year. But our identity is just rebounding and defending, man. So just trying to play hard nosed defense, get the best shot we can possible. And then we have a number of great crashers and Ronnie DeGray and Harlan Beverly, Corey Washington, Quincy Ballard, guys who can go, fetch extra possessions throughout the course of a game. And essentially those extra possessions add up. So more so just sticking to our identity, man, and trusting each other throughout this process and understanding that, every game is different. There is still a lot of season left, like you explained, but we're just trying to go 1-0 and just focus on the task ahead and just not get too far ahead of ourselves for sure.
Well, we'll be very excited to watch your team play the rest of this season. Xavier, thank you so much for joining All American.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
What a conversation between you and Mr. Bell. I love the way that he outlined this run, but also kind of stayed steady hand all the way through it.
Well, I think the thing that stands out to me is just how humble he is. Like, he averaged 23.5 points per game this week, and he was just giving all the credits to his teammates and his coaching staff. And, yeah, I'm excited to watch him and the rest of that Shockers team play, not only in the regular season, but come March.
It's going to be a fun tournament. And every time we lead into this, it just ends up being – it builds more and more excitement for me because I love tournament time. I love Dickies Arena. It's one of the best venues in terms of March Madness that you could possibly ask for. And the American, just kind of that perfect marriage between the two. It's one of the best tournaments out there. So can't wait for it. But, I'm talking about Dickies Arena and just how much I love that spot. And it's a great venue. But our conference has some incredible venues across the board. No doubt about it. So you actually played this game with some of our student athletes throughout Media Day. I want to play this game myself, and I want to challenge you as well. I want to see who gets more right here across the board. So we're going to keep tally here on who can guess the American arenas. And you might be thinking at home, but the court's going to give it away. No, we've blocked out the court. This is all based on seating arena outside of it. And in basketball, it's a lot harder to tell than maybe football is at times, even though you don't necessarily have that outside of it. So do you know the American arena? Here's the first one on the board. I know this one right off the jump. All right, you want to say it on 3? 1, 2, 3, Rice.
Tudor Fieldhouse.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't know if we were saying
I didn't know
school
if we were saying Rice. Okay, we want to say school or we want to say moving forward?
We'll say school. We'll say school, but we can elaborate. Okay. Tudor Fieldhouse, Shooters Gym,
so
great
1-1
atmosphere, kind of an intimate venue. Yeah, that one's 1-1. Rice, of course, one of the teams that we just talked about trying to find their fold down late in the season. So 1-1. All right. Moving on to the next one. What do we got next here? Zach Fisher's running this in the back. Ooh.
Do we count it down and you want to do 3?
It's kind of tough. Can we take this full for me, Zach? It's a little tough for me to see. I got old eyes here. Yes, I think I've got it. So when
I'll count us down.
Actually, you count us down because we got to do it at the same time.
1, 2, 3. South
Tulane.
Florida.
Okay, I think I'm wrong. I think you're right.
Oh!
I was right. That's the Devlin Fieldhouse, baby. Talk about intimate venues. That one's awesome. I was a little worried because I didn't remember that second level, like that little upper concourse.
That's the thing. That's where I got because South Florida's, I think, a little bit bigger on the second concourse.
You want to hear a funny story?
Ooh, okay.
So I was calling a game at Tulane last year, and my flight got delayed coming in from San Antonio. And I landed an hour before tip-off, an hour before we went live. We had like a pregame show going into it. Hour before we went live on this show, and from the airport to Devlin Fieldhouse, we had it's like a 25-minute drive without traffic. Traffic was terrible, awful. It was backed up the whole way. I looked at my ETA, and it was getting me there 3 minutes before we got on air because of like whatever app I was looking at the time. I bribed my Uber driver to break traffic laws to get me there on time. And
You
we were
want this
weaving
on
through,
TV
Yeah, no, I'm
record?
throwing it out there. Yeah, I bribed him, and I told him, I was like, I'm going to give you the biggest tip you've ever received. Tell me that number right now. And he told me the number, and I was like, all right, I'll hit it. Like, get me there on time. I'll make it happen. I walked in. We got there 15 minutes before tip-off, or before we got on the air, and I put on a headset and called the broadcast.
Was it a good
as
broadcast?
is. It was. It was an awesome game, too. It was ECU and Tulane a couple years back. So,
Okay.
there you go.
All of your illegal
Bribed
activities. All right, Zach, let's see the next one. I hate that I'm losing 2-1 right now.
2-1.
Ooh.
Okay. All right,
Mm,
I've got mine.
Hold on. Let me think for a second.
Yeah. This
Okay.
one is sneaky tough.
Okay.
This one's
You
sneaky.
count us down
I think
this
I know
time.
it.
I think I'm going to take a guess.
Okay.
Count us down. Go ahead.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Florida Atlantic.
Memphis women specifically. Who is it? It is the Memphis women, because the men play at FedEx Forum, and that is not the men's gym, but the women have their own arena that they play in as well. I've got the name of it right here now.
Man,
that I've gotten
I even
it
tried
right.
to study these before
It is
this,
the
and I'm
Elmo
still
Roan Fieldhouse.
Wow.
Yes.
I literally tried to study these before, and I'm down 3-1. I really
Yes, you
hate
are
this
down
game.
3-1. Hey, it's okay. LeBron and the Cavs were down 3-1. You can come back and make it happen.
Okay, Zach, play
What
the
do we
next
got coming
one.
up next? Ooh.
Okay, I think I should know this one. If I am wrong on this, then I might need to be fired.
This is one I've definitely never been to, so I think I know.
Zach,
what
have
it
I
is.
been to this one? I think if I'm right.
You can't ask.
He's not
questions.
talking
You
to me.
can't
I'm trying
phone a
to.
friend. What is this? How to Be a Millionaire?
Okay,
Are you
I
ready?
think.
You count it in.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
That's
Temple.
Yeah, that's Temple.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
I was right.
I was a little worried about it.
4-2.
Yeah, 4-2. What do we got next? I'm 4 for 4, by the way.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I know this one.
I know this one as well because I love this arena across the board. Ready?
3, 2, 1.
That's
Tulsa.
That's the Reynolds Center. I was so impressed with the Reynolds Center. I think
I've never been there
it's
yet.
a brilliant venue. I think it's one of the more underrated ones. If they pack that place out, it is awesome. It's kind of the best mixture. Devlin Fieldhouse is like this too. It's a great mixture of like the modern amenities for college basketball, but kind of that traditional feel to it as well. So really a great venue. Tulsa across the board. All right, 5-3. What do we got next? I don't even know how many we've got here. We might run through this. I know this one as well.
Oh, I
got
know
it.
this one.
All right, ready?
I think I know this.
You
All
think
right.
so? 3, 2,
2,
1.
Wichita State. I almost said Charles Koch Arena,
Yep.
and then I had to stumble. But
That is the home to the Shockers, baby. Okay, I'm pretty happy here. I went 6 for 6. I got them all.
6-3.
Do you have any like extra bonus ones, Zach? Like back there? Let's challenge it. Let's just go rapid fire. I've got 2
No.
seconds to answer on all of them. That's what we should have been doing. Any rapid fire like ones you've got back there? I think we're good to go.
Oh, I know this. Yuengling
Center. That's Tampa. That's South Florida. I got that right off the bat.
I got it
one.
right too.
Wait,
were
wait,
you
what?
wrong?
Did you said Yuengling Center?
That's what you said the same thing.
Oh, we both.
We were
did.
both
Yeah, that's
wrong.
Bartow Arena.
Oh.
See, that's disappointing.
Oh.
That's disappointing.
I like that you were really I was really
was
confident about it
confident.
too, but you were really confident.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got one wrong at
That's
least.
unfortunate.
Okay. Well, I even moved this basketball to like be in
Yeah.
a more position to like be
That's-
competitive, and I messed up.
Mhm.
Let's play a different game next time. We should play we should play pig. Actually, I'm a good shot. But anyway, I think we should.
You don't want to do that either.
We should pay attention to the people who are actually athletes and very good at their sports and shooting the basketball, and maybe guessing the arenas that they play in our top plays. Yes, I'm taking a U-turn into top plays here because
It's a professional broadcaster right there.
we're doing our best. Back on the basketball court, this is where the men play for Memphis, FedEx Forum. We saw the women's court. This is a pretty cool one. Demarion Yates, no-look pass to PJ Haggerty. There's an even better angle of this I want you to see because it just looks even prettier from here.
Ooh. Oh. Okay. The only thing that would have been better is if they would have struck like the Dwayne Wade, LeBron James pose.
Yeah,
where like
I
they're making it and he's got his arms out, wide out.
I'd
Very
agree.
nice.
That'd be pretty cool.
Pretty cool. That's the type of consistency you expect from the Memphis Tigers.
Absolutely.
We've got some consistency. One of the best programs year in and year out in the American is the Tulane Green Wave baseball program, and it's because of defensive plays like this. Superman dive out in left field to track it down and to rob LMU of runs and to end the game in a shutout. How about that? Secure the shutout for your pitcher. That's something that's going to go down for everyone on that team, and they're going to remember that moment. He's laying out. It's 10-0. Doesn't matter. I'm laying out, and I'm making sure we get a shutout.
The full extension. I like that the lights are going out too there, just for the aggressive effect. I think that just solidifies the fact the Green Wave coming up with the victory. Go back to the basketball court. Another no look, but in a different way on this one. So Wichita State, we said they're playing well. Bijan Cortez to Quincy Ballard. The no look alley-oop.
Oh, that's nasty. The backwards alley-oop?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's not. It shouldn't be.
I mean, that's what you would call that,
I'm
right?
I'm shocked this is at number 3. These next two plays pretty darn good across the board.
That's what I'm saying. I was pretty impressed with this
impressive.
one, so.
All right, we go back to the diamond, but it's a smaller diamond this time. How about USF softball? How about we've talked about diving plays from center and from left and from right. How about a double play out of the infield, diving for the basketball? I'm still in hoops. Diving for the softball, and this one ends the inning. What a play. There's zero reaction time there.
Well,
you don't get any chance to get off. That's either first step quickness or you don't make that play.
Well, Kathy Garcia Soto is the 2-time American Conference Defensive Player of the Year. She's
Shocker.
a junior, so we'll see if she wins it again in year 3. But
off to a good start.
Yeah,
I would say.
I think that should give her some more votes in that column when that is eventually decided on by the coaches. Now, top play number 1 still on the diamond. This one's heartwarming as well. Tie game against USC. Michael Zito over the left center field wall. Home run, walk-off home run, and that is his first career hit.
Wow. So not only is he on the board, but he hits his first hit, his first homer, and it's a walk-off against a power opponent. USC's won more national championships. I think this is still correct. I think they've won more national championships than any other program in baseball across the board. I'd have to go look that up to make sure I'm sure. I'll fact check it in a moment. But the fact that he gets the win in that beautiful, beautiful ballpark, I love their ballpark.
Yes.
And that's pretty impressive. Congratulations.
So that's why that's our number 1
Plus,
play.
those uniforms are sick.
Yeah.
The sleeveless, the vest there.
I'm a big fan. You fact check yourself
Yep.
before.
Most baseball national championships. It's either Arizona State or USC. It is USC. So I was right. So,
Look at that.
How about that? Knocked
You're
it
right
out of the
about a
park.
lot of things today.
Yeah, thank you. That's why they pay me the big bucks to be here. That's how we do. That's how we do it.
Knocked it out of the park, as you said.
You
Another pun. Yeah.
Baseball pun. Yeah, snuck it in there.
There you go.
I slid in there.
I think we need to close our laptops. So we've had too many, metaphors and puns. I think end it right here. Let's get to Dickey's Arena pretty soon.
It stole the show. No doubt about it. Yeah, slid right in there. All right. When we're back next week, we've got a preview of the tournament, both men's and women's. We're going to kind of mix and mash a little bit next week. So it's a all-encompassing show. We're going to preview the tournament. We're going to look ahead and really put this thing out in front so that way we have a great look going into Dickey's Arena. We won't have the brackets by then, but we'll be pretty close to kind of piecing it all together. Maybe we'll put together a guess. We'll guess
bracket.
Yeah,
we'll
put together a couple segments for you next week as well. But should be a whole lot of fun. Always a pleasure, Maria.
I had so much fun. So Dickey's Arena is coming up. We're going to have the guesstimation bracket. We covered baseball, softball. Anything else you got to say before we close everything up? Any more pirate puns?
No, but we might have a football show next week, too.
Okay, we're just putting that out there. But you'll have to tune in to find out. As Kyle always says, for Zach and Chris in the back, he's Kyle Youmans. I'm Maria Trivelpiece. Thank you for watching another episode of All-American and putting up with our puns about pirates and so much more.